Hey YouTube. Hey Daryl Dimer, welcome to the stream. How's the video? I'm getting an unsupported resolution. You need to change the video resolution. Current resolution is 854 by 480, which is not supported for this configuration. Is the video coming through all right? How about the audio? Thanks, Joel. Welcome to the stream. Okay, I'm gonna have to dig around and figure out what the story is on that. I guess it's just blowing it up to the right size. Well, how are you guys doing? Hey, 54 Punchy. Welcome to the stream. How are you doing today? I'm once again bereft of axes to grind, so I'll be dependent on you guys to give me talking points or questions to keep me going, please. My Peru fish are doing fine. I tried feeding my plecos a slice off the outside of a pineapple the other day, and they started out acting like they really enjoyed it, and then they stopped eating it altogether. So I ended up having to pull that pineapple slice out. They decided they didn't like it. I was wondering if they would eat it. I fed them a few green beans the other day, and I guess they ate them. I couldn't really tell. I can't find them in the tank anywhere, so I'm assuming that they ate them. The tetras are getting fat. Yeah, pineapple has a lot of acid in it. You're right, Pam. But they started out acting like they were really excited. Yeah, that's my first time for feeding green beans. I've always thought that the salt and the spices. Hey, Corona Ken, welcome to the stream, man. How's Ken doing today? If you guys don't know, yeah, I really like pineapple, so I don't have that problem with it. I have that problem with cantaloupe and mango and those kinds of fruits, but pineapple's one that I really like. Ken met me at the airport when I first got back from Peru, and I need to thank him profusely for buying me my first cheeseburger back in the States. It was really good, and I know, Ken, I was pretty goofed up in the sense that I'd been flying for so long and I was punchy and didn't really have the right amount of sleep in me. So I'm sorry if I wasn't the best company, but I really appreciated you meeting me. I was supposed to meet IFG in Houston on the way out on my layover, and we never got connected. And it took Ken and I about 3 hours to get connected. I kept walking around. The problem with making connections on international flights is that sometimes your plane's late, or sometimes you get hung up in customs trying to get through, and there's always a big line. And I was thrilled to meet you too, Corona Ken, and I have enjoyed the reading material you gifted me with, and it really felt wonderful to have someone that I had only met through YouTube to be there to greet me back in the States again. I ended up waiting almost 6 hours later to get my flight out. My flight was supposed to leave at a certain time, but there were a lot of, hey Justin, welcome to the stream. There were a lot of thunderstorms in New Jersey when I was supposed to catch my flight out to Louisville, and we ended up being delayed by about 6 hours before we finally took off. And I was exhausted. I had spent 10 days in Peru and had been in the air for hours and hours and hours, and I was pretty darn punchy when Ken and I finally got a chance to meet. I wish we'd had more time, Ken. I wish we'd have hooked up earlier and been able to go out and do stuff. And as it turns out, we would have had time to have a 20-course meal and visit 15 pet shops if I'd only known how late I was going to be delayed. I think it was like 3 a.m. in the morning when I finally got home. And it was the end of a very wonderful trip, but Ken really punctuated it for me by being there to meet and greet and sit down and have a meal with me, buy me a meal. I just want you to know, Ken, that I really appreciated that, man, that it came across as a very human, wonderful thing for you to do, to go out of your way to fight traffic and spend time wandering around the airport looking for me, because I wandered around the airport a great deal looking for you too. And we finally ended up meeting exactly where we were supposed to meet. Corona Kid says he got lost on the way home. Hey Laura, welcome to the stream. All right, guys, how are your fish doing? Are your fish rooms going? Have you gotten any new fish? Have you run into any issues? Laura, welcome to the stream, and it's fine to lurk. But if you have any questions, Laura, that would be helpful in this instance. Like I said, my tetras are doing fine. Joel says he spent a lot of money on new fish in the last month. Well, do tell, Joel, what did you get? My tetras are getting fat and sassy. I have seen no sign of, knock on wood, I haven't seen no sign of any kind of parasitic issues with the fish. They've gotten plenty fat. I don't feed them on a completely regular schedule, but I feed them semi-regularly, the tetras I'm talking about, and the plecos for that matter. My 2 cichlids are getting fat and sassy. The biggest one tries to bully everybody in the tank, and the littlest one has learned to hang at the top of the water when I put food in. Because the food ends up floating on the surface of the water a lot longer than, actually finally sinking down into the bottom of the tank. So the little one's getting even fatter than the big one is, because it understands that as soon as I put food in the tank, it's going to float around on the surface for a while. So it stays up there eating off the surface. Joel says he bought some Maui eye biters, haplochromas. I think they're haplochromas still. The name may have changed. That is the only African cichlid of the quote African cichlids. I've had Crebensis before, so I've had other African cichlids, but of the Rift Lake African cichlids, the Maui eye biter is the only one that I have ever kept. I got about 4 of them up to about 6 or 7 inches one time, and they all died on me. I could not figure out what on earth killed them, but they all ended up dying, one right after the other. Um, some Cyanochromis fry, also a new line of guppies, blue Moscows. I don't know what the frieri is. That's one that I don't recognize. Coronakin says North Jersey Society 2018 fall auction next. Also looking for just the right guppies. Going to club auctions is always a lot of fun. One, you're getting other hobbyist fish. The electric blue hap, it's also known as. Okay. Well, Joel, my one piece of advice would be to watch them carefully once they get up 4 or 5 inches. They are a gorgeous fish. They have a really strange jaw on them. They've got a really heavy jaw, and they are, of course, ambush predators in the sense that they will attack anything. They're not afraid of anything, and they will attack anything. And I would just caution you once they get up large to watch them very closely. Coronakin is going to Aquatic Experience 2018, and he says he will be visiting King Lee's booth. That sounds awesome. I got to meet King and his wife, and I think I even met I think they brought their kids with them, or maybe they didn't. I think at one point I met he and his wife and their 2 kids, or 2 of their kids. And King is a wonderful guy, very warm, friendly person, and I'm sure he has got some remarkable guppies. He's been getting a lot of guppies from some really reputable dealers, so I wouldn't doubt he's got some phenomenal fry to sell. Club auctions are always a really exciting thing to do. I mean, sometimes it ends up being, so-so. The people are selling stuff you're not really interested in and that kind of thing. But most of the time, you will find, I mean, it's other hobbyists, people just like us, that have really weird or rare kinds of fish that they try to get and breed. We're all like that. We all want to find some really exciting looking fish or exciting fish and breed them and then sell them. You always get some really interesting types of fish. I mean, there are a lot of the, same old fish, but you don't often see convict fry there or that kind of stuff unless it's some rare type of convict. Mostly you see interesting and rare species. Maybe someone's decided that they're done with that species and they're selling them off, but they're usually well kept. They're usually pretty disease free. Now they may get a disease in the process of being stressed, being brought to a club auction, but more often than not, you're getting a good quality fish from people at club auctions that are hobbyists just as we are and have worked at breeding some different kind of fish that they enjoy, or have gotten tired of some fish that they have kept for a while and are selling them off. And they do it at club auctions to help the clubs, because the clubs take a part of the profits, and that's the kind of thing that funds the club for the next year. And I would highly recommend going to club auctions. You can get great deals on equipment. People may be, downsizing. People may be selling off older equipment that they don't really need anymore. And you can get some excellent value and some excellent purchases. Now you can get the zonk every now and then too. So you got to, buyer beware. But club auctions are an exciting and different way of getting fish and getting fish equipment. And I would always recommend them. And Ken's going to AE. I'm sure many of you are going. And if you're thinking about it, if you're on the fence, I would highly recommend AE. You are going to meet some incredible people. You're going to rub shoulders with some giants in the hobby. You'll catch Heiko Blair walking around on the floor, or you'll catch any of the other greats in our hobby walking around on the floor. If they're there as speakers, they will be out mingling, and you've got a shot at meeting them and talking to them. I would advise you to not be too rude. I've always had to stifle myself in those kinds of settings. I went to the Ohio Cichlid extravaganza a couple of years ago, and Ingo Seidel was there, and I had to keep myself from just being obnoxious, and it finally got out of hand, and I caught him finishing his dinner in the restaurant at the hotel and went right up to him and started talking to him. The other people at the table were kind of set aback by it, but I made sure that he was done with his meal and that he wasn't in the middle of some serious conversation before I went up to him and introduced myself to him and asked him my questions. I later, at one of his talks, got him to sign my book, L. Catfish's Back to Nature copy, which I would highly recommend to anyone that keeps Laura cards or plecos. Ingo Seidel. It's an excellent book. It's not a very large book, but Ingo said that part of his desire in writing that book was to write an affordable L. Catfish book. There are lots of definitive L. Catfish books out there, but they are gigantic and they take many volumes, and the volumes are highly expensive. You can look to pay well over $100 for one of the exhaustive L. Catfish books. And of course, you're going to get a lot more information out of one of those books about a specific species, their care, their parameters, and all that sort of thing, their location. But for an affordable L. Catfish book, I highly recommend L. Catfishes by Ingo Seidel. It's one of the Back to Nature books. So I would highly recommend anyone to go to AE. I went last year and I met a great many wonderful people there, and I got to talk to some really great highlights in the hobby. Over breakfast in the morning at the restaurant, I recognized people and spoke to them, and we ended up sitting together and talking. There is just a phenomenal number of people out there that are in this hobby, that are just like we are, that have loved fish for a long, long time and kept fish for a long, long time. And you will just meet one after another of them if you go to these events that are, fairly large and fairly well known. ACA conferences, even your local club meetings and auctions can have some real highlights in the hobby in it. You may have people in your very close local area that you just don't know about, and that's that's the beauty of going to one of these events, is that you get to meet new people, people you never heard of before. You know, not everybody is running a YouTube channel. Not everybody is writing books. Not everybody is being covered in magazines. And yet there is just a phenomenal number of people out there that are doing great work in this hobby, or that have been doing great work in this hobby for decades, if not half centuries. And if you go to one of these events, everyone that walks by you may well be just exactly that person. And that's pretty phenomenal. You know, most of us go through our hobbies, our fish keeping hobby, and kind of semi-isolation. You know, there's not a lot of people in our neighborhood usually that are, hey KG Cichlids, welcome to the stream, man. How's KG doing on this fine Saturday? There's not a lot of people in our local neighborhoods, you know, our local circle of friends that are big fish nuts, you know. But you go to one of these events, and every one of those people that are there are either new people that are just excited to see what's going on, or they may well be highlights in the hobby. Old Joel, don't type, man. Keep your eyes on the road and your hands on the wheel. KG's working on lunch. That's something I need to do here in a little bit myself, is to get some food. But I thank you guys for spending time with me on your busy Saturday afternoons or your lazy Saturday afternoons. Basketball season is cranking up. Football season is at the quarter pole. There's a lot of other things to do. We're closing in on winter in the northern hemisphere, and you know, people have a lot of stuff. Hey, Valley Fish, welcome to the stream. People have a lot of stuff they need to get done before winter hits us fully smack dab in the face. And for those of us in the northern central plains, we're supposed to have a really bad winter this year, or at least that's what the prognosticators are saying. We're going to have polar vortexes sitting on the Great Lakes and producing a lot of snow and a lot of really cold weather this winter. So thinking about winter is something that should keep us fairly on our toes right now. We've been through the joyous summer. We've had a chance to get out and about and do all of our things. And winter is the time when we need to start thinking about how our tanks are going to get through the winter. We need to start thinking about sealing the outsides of our houses so our insulation is better, you know, to fend off the cold as much as we can. Hey Heather, welcome to the stream. There's a lot of things that we can do to insulate our houses, to better insulate our houses. There are a lot of steps we can take to ensure that our rooms where our fish are, whether they're scattered throughout a house or whether they're in a central location in a fish room, you know, there's a lot of ways that we can go about cleaning our ductwork, you know, making sure vents are open, making sure filters have been changed, making sure that our heater has been serviced. There are a lot of ways KG says, yeah, I got to put a heater in the turtle pond pretty soon just in case it gets too low. Watch it, KG. I mean, I don't want to be a Chicken Little and say the sky is falling, but some of us in the northern central parts of the United States may get a heck of a winter. And Jeremy, welcome to the stream. You may be in that number too. You're not too far from me, and you're further north than I am. We're supposed to. A lot of the prognosticators are saying we're going to have a really cold winter this year, Jeremy. That we could see some serious below zero temperatures for extended periods of time. And that's just from me watching the weather, watching the weather people prognosticate about how this is going to be. Jeremy, what tips do you have to offer people for winterizing their fish rooms and winterizing their houses to get ready for a winter? Like winter's coming. Winter is coming. Game of Thrones is still another year off, but winter is still coming. Jeremy, I've seen that you've had a bunch of live streams here lately, and I'm sorry that I've missed them. Corona Ken, you guys are supposed to get a lot of blizzards this year. So I would advise you to bundle up, buddy. Get ready for more blizzards than normal. Stock up on coffee, 54 Punchy says. There you go. That's a good thought. Well, the summertime is when we do a lot of other activities other than our hobbies, because we're free to go outside. We can go swimming, go camping, go boating. Corona Ken says he has a supply of spare heaters. I purchased last year from Dr. Foster's 7 heaters. And before a week was out, I had thrown out 4 of them already. There were 4 of those heaters that were already defective. They were either stuck on, or they would not hold temperature, or they ran wild and then turned themselves off, and they ran wild and turned themselves off. Jeremy says, number 1 tip, control the ambient temperature. And number 2, realize that many specimens go through season changes and is good for the metabolism. And that's a really salient point. Yeah, I don't think I'm going to be buying heaters from Dr. Foster's anymore. I've got a lot of good equipment from them. I found them to be really effectively priced, and I'm pretty much always trying to squeeze the most out of a penny. But this was last year, and I wanted to be prepared for winter, so I bought 7 from large to small, and I was really not happy with the outcome. I did not try to send them back. It's such a hassle trying to get some companies to, make good on the purchase. But I was pretty demoralized that 4 of them were useless to me. Now, you can get away with heaters that are stuck on by using a temp control system that cuts it off when the temperature in the tank reaches the temperature that you've set on the temperature control. Valley Fish says Dr. Foster's and Smith is one of my go-to stores. Never had problems with items. Weird that you did, dang it. Well, Valley Fish, I am not trying to denigrate Dr. Foster and Smith, but heaters, fish tank heaters, as long as I have been in the hobby, They have always been a bugaboo. Fish tank heaters have always been one of the ways that most of your fish die, either by getting themselves up against the heater and getting burned, or by the heater failing and them dying because it got too cold, or by the heater sticking open and boiling them. Heaters have always gone. If you've got an electric heater in your tank, you can just as well figure that you are going to have issues. Now, back in the day, and I'm talking in the 70s, the only heater that I have ever found that I really trusted was Ebo Jaegers. And they are no longer Ebo Jaeger, they're now Ebo something else. Pam says, I did that too, ordered a bunch of heaters that were on clearance from Walmart online factory. When they came, there were instructions in Korea, no English, and no Fahrenheit on the settings. Hey, VB23, welcome to the stream. Half of them didn't work. Out of 6, I'm using one of them. Yeah. Jeremy puts his money down on Fluval M series. In the event he utilizes one. Everybody's popular in this stream, VB23. We're a small, tight-knit bunch, and we try to reach out to everyone that comes in to make them feel part of the family. I mean, we're all fish fam anyway, but we, at least on my channel, I really much want to try to make connections with people in such a way that they feel like they're part of the family. We're all hobbyists and we're all in this together. I'm not some great sage. I'm not some super scientist. I'm not any of those things. I am just a hobbyist, just like you are. I've just lived longer than a few of you, and I've been in the hobby for quite a while. So I don't want you to think of me as some great guru or any of that garbage at all. I'm just another hobbyist. I'm trying to give you the benefit of my experience, what I've learned, and that I'm also trying to give you the benefit of my failures and what I've learned from my failures. VB23 says, my grindle worms are thriving, and I did my biggest grindle worm feeding today using my plastic pipette, and it was super successful. I need to get it on film next time. Jeremy says we're a very large and dysfunctional family, and I'll drink to that, Jeremy. Yes, if anybody in here has not spent a great deal of time on Jeremy's channel, Sergeant Tank, if you've not spent a great deal of time following him or going to his store, I would highly recommend that you check out Mr. Sergeant Tank. Jeremy and I got a chance to meet at Aquatic Experience, and it was wonderful meeting Jeremy and his beautiful wife. I was sorry they didn't have their kids with them, but maybe they weren't sorry they didn't have their kids with them. Valley Fish says, my favorite heater, Aqueon Pro, when one is needed. Yeah. My fish... My fish are scattered throughout my house. I have most of them in one bedroom, but they are also scattered throughout my house. So in the tanks where I run heaters, I try to keep my house temperature at about 70 degrees during the winter. It doesn't always stay that way because this is a 100-year-old house that I live in, and it's drafty in the wintertime sometimes. So it doesn't always stay 70 degrees at every point in the house. But I try to, I mean, I have fish that I let the temperature run with the house. Okay, Pam and VB23 are talking about how to keep grindle worms alive. And I mentioned that I have had trouble with them before myself, trying to keep them alive, and that I know a lot of people have trouble keeping their colonies going. And Punchy offers the tip to be diatomaceous earth to set the tub on VB. Mites will get them otherwise. Yeah, that's been one of my experience. VB says I cover my holes with filter floss so no invaders can come in. Punchy said I did too. They still got in. Crashed my culture after a bit. I need to find some more. Welcome to Hotel Sergeant Tank. You can check in anytime you like, but you can never leave. Jeremy, you more than deserve my words of praise, man. You are a highlight in this hobby, and you are someone that I think everyone should listen to and should pay attention to. So think nothing of it, my friend. Yeah, I've always had problems with grindle worm cultures, which is why I don't keep them anymore. You know, they're a great source of food. Valley Fish says enjoying the pictures on the stream. These pictures are my video that I put out called Pictures at an Exhibition. And this is the great majority of the pictures that I took in Peru. And it covers the whole trip from start to finish. And I still need to do a lot of work. There's probably yeah, Jeremy, so do I. I am still a rank amateur at photography. If you've watched any of my streams or any of my videos, you'll know this. But I tried my best, and I basically culled all the ones that were completely unviewable and left a few of them that are pretty shady anyway in here. A lot of these pictures were taken through the vehicle window, so there's a lot of movement going on. But a lot of them were taken on the rivers and streams where we collected fish. And I did this to try to create a sense of what habitat actually looks like in the wild. It was nothing. Hey Dank, welcome to the stream, man. The habitat that we found most of these fish in was so alien from what we have in our fish tanks that it just shocked me. Basically, they were muddy streams with thick mud on the bottom or thick sand on the bottom, some rocks, and a few of the streams and rivers were solid rocks, what we used to call a rock garden, but there was no vegetation growing in the water, none. No plant life in the water at all. There were tons of dead leaves and branches and pieces of wood and whatever flotsam ended up in the water from the bank. It just really turned my head around. Now, if you were to go collecting in Asia someplace where there are slower, shallower streams and rivers, then you might very well find them teeming with plant life. But mostly what we found was algae. That's basically the biggest part of the plant life that we found. And some of it was orange algae, some of it was brown algae, and some of it was green algae. But that was basically the plant life in this local area of Peru in the rivers and streams. I highly recommend that all of you that are really into fish keeping spend some time collecting in the wild so that you can wrap your head around exactly what habitat really is. 54 Punchy says, I was watching underwater film from Venezuela. There were tons of plants underwater there. Yeah, I can't disagree with that. I know that there are lots of places where there are lots of plants that live under the water, but there was virtually nothing living under the water. Now, the water was turbid. There were a few streams that were perfectly clear. If you've watched Corey's and Joseph's videos, you'll see some of the underwater footage that those guys did. I was really jealous of their camera equipment that allowed them to do that. I would have loved to have done the same thing myself. But I was happy with what equipment I had, and I tried to make the best out of it. And that's what the flowing picture stream in the background is. Corona Ken says, yeah, I've been trying to collect that 10-pound flounder for a long time. Good luck, Ken. Good luck catching that fish finally. I know you love your fishing. And even that is the same thing as collecting in the wild, in the sense that you're out in the habitat and you see what's going on. In this area of Peru, on the streams and rivers that we went to, 98% of the plant life was on the banks hanging over into the water. Very, 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 very rare was there anything in the water growing other than algae. But I can feel for you on catching that 10-pound flounder. Those things cook up really nice, Ken. Thanks says he was watching a new show on Netflix called Meat Eater. They were fishing the red pacu with bows. It was wicked. Yeah, pacus are not the brightest fish on the planet. So you could literally throw a piece of fruit in the water and use a bow to catch pacus. I have always loved pacus. They're like the big pet dog of the fish keeping hobby. I had 3 20-plus inch pacus in a 150-gallon for a long time. I hit this stage in my hobby, where I was going to all these fish stores, and almost every fish store would have a mascot pacu that somebody had brought in and no one was ever going to buy because they were too large. You know, the juvenile coloration on pacus is a lot prettier than the adult coloration is. But pacus are a wonderful fish to keep. They are messy. They're like keeping a Oscar. You know, a full-grown Oscar will just destroy the quality of water in a tank because they eat so much and they make such a big mess. VB says, I love small live streams and small communities because they aren't butthurt folks. Well, don't get me wrong, I get butthurt. I get rage quit butthurt a lot of times. I get my nose pushed out of joint pretty easy. I have to manage my anger. I have to, deal with what my delusion tells me are slights all the time. But on the whole, fish keepers are a pretty dang decent bunch of folks. That's what I have learned over the years. When you get up into the higher ranks of the hobby, ego becomes an issue a lot, but it's Punchy says, it seems to me that when a channel gets big, they get a lot of hate. Well, yeah, if you're a troller and you're looking at the number of live streams that are going on while you're on there wanting someplace to go troll, of course you're going to go to the one that has 300 people in it. So the most popular is always going to draw the most trouble. But I mean, I want to have 1 million subscribers and be the most famous person on YouTube. We all want that. It's just in our nature to desire to be applauded, to be lauded, to be looked up to. Yeah, Punchy says not just trollers. The biggest channels get whole groups of people down on them. Anytime you become popular, you're gonna get haters. People love to see people rise in popularity, but they enjoy just as much to watch them come crashing down to earth again. It's just part of human nature. They support them wholly going up, and then when they reach their peak, they start trying to drag them down again. So being really popular anywhere is going to put a target on your back. So, just be aware of that. I mean, you can't let what other people do change who you are. Who you are should be what you bring to the table in any kind of social experience like YouTube or Facebook or any of those things. Don't come to a place like that with an ego, with a persona. All that kind of stuff will just end up dragging you down in the end. Be who you are. I mean, if you're an absolute jerk, then maybe you need to modify a little bit of your jerkiness. If you're a jerk in real life to everyone around you, and you bring that to YouTube or Facebook, you're probably not gonna make friends with a lot of people. So I would advise in that case to be a little circumspect about who you are, quote, quote. To thine own self be true. Always, always, people. Don't put on airs. If you catch yourself putting on airs, think about it. Stop and think about what it is that's making you try to act like someone you're not. Now, I'm not saying that you shouldn't strive to be better. Maybe you're not very good and you're striving to be better. That's always laudable. But don't try to be some great thing if you're not a great thing. Strive to be a great thing, but don't put on the airs of being a great thing before you are. What what's the old thing? Fake it till you make it. You know, that's fine for a advertising strategy or for a money making scheme or those kinds of, you know, slightly undercurrent kind of things. When you're part of a community of like-minded people, when you are trying to make friends in a hobby situation where you all enjoy the same thing and you're trying to make connections with people, don't bring them airs. Don't come on like you're some hot shot if you're not. Just be yourself. People are going to be much more attracted is into someone that they can see as being real, as being a person towards them, than they are someone who's trying to act like some kind of demigod or something. Yeah, Dank, you're right. Hate is not always jealousy. We all have personality conflicts with people. There's always going to be someone that we're just not too, excited about, that we'd rather spend time away from. And this hobby is this hobby is no place to think that everyone you're going to meet is going to be, perfectly friendly and always on the up and up. That's just not true of life. So it's not going to be true of the hobby either. But for the most part, if you take a cross section of any population and then you take a cross section of fish fan, of people that really seriously care about fish keeping and spend time keeping fish, that cross section of those people is going to be better adjusted, better to be around, and than the cross section of just the normal public. And I mean, think about this. These are people that are spending a great deal of their time trying to keep creatures alive in an unnatural situation. So they are invested in the thriving and the survival of creatures in their care. That by itself necessitates that they are more open to learning. They're more open to things that are different from what they know. They're more open to other people. And it just generally makes sense that a cross section of fish keepers is going to be a lot more good to be around than a cross section of the public. And I'm not trying to badmouth the public. I'm just saying statistically wise. Hey, Jeff Rose, welcome to the stream, man. I enjoyed your shrimp video, man. That was a nice shrimp video you did. VB is talking about the King of DIY and same. I don't. Punchy says, but I don't spread the hate. I just don't subscribe or whatever. Same. VB says same. I don't watch videos of people I don't like. Don't support it. Yeah, well, I just... VB says if the world was like me, it would be perfect. Yeah, I know. My wife says that if everyone would just ask her before they did stuff, that things would work out really well. They just need to stop and ask her before doing stuff. Jeff Rose, how is your Saturday going on, man? All right, we're rounding the bend towards an hour, guys. Poppin' Poppy, welcome to the stream, man. That's a name I don't recognize, but you are more than welcome here. So if you guys have any last minute questions you'd like to throw at me, once again, I implore you, if there's any kind of topic that we've been talking about today that I Poppy, because those pictures are of habitat in Peru, the streams and lakes where we collected fish in Peru. And you'll see those places. All right, guys, I'd like to thank you for spending some of your busy Saturdays with me. We're getting. VB says if you ask her before doing stuff, there might not be a fish room. Well, my wife has been long suffering. She was a fish keeper long ago herself. She's still got a few tanks left over from her fish keeping days. In fact, I'm using one of her filters in a tank that came from our from her fish keeping hobby. Like I said, at one point I had 800 gallons in the house. I had two 110s, a 150, and a slew of 55s set up in this house. You couldn't move without touching a fish tank. And I slowly kind of, my hobby waned on me. I just wasn't really that invested in it anymore. And she finally said, look, honey, I need some of my house back, and you're not really paying attention. So I got out of the hobby. I went dry for 5-6 years, and I donated most of my tanks to a local club. All right, guys. You guys have a good weekend. You guys, I hope your fish do well, and I look forward to seeing you on YouTube and the various other places. You guys have a good weekend.